career physicians are not supported to the extent that they should. We talk about, oh, there's a problem, oh, there's a problem, but there are also solutions. And this journey has helped me look at solutions to anyone around us who's just like saying that physicians burn out and we should just accept that and we should just move on and we should not complain. I don't think that's going to work that well anymore. So I really think we need to focus on helping set up our early career physicians for success. Most of my clients are still in the same jobs, but happy and empowered. So it's not like you're going to have to go and like tear down buildings. And if you want to do that, I'm with you. I'll help you dismantle it because
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. We have the amazing Dr. Amna Shabbir. She is a coach for early career physicians, a much needed interval of time that we have the desire for help and we don't know where to go. So thank you for being a support system for the early career physicians. She is a double board certified geriatrician and internal medicine physician and a mom. And how else would you like to share yourself with the world today, Amna, and thank you for being here.
thank you so much for having me, Dr. Reger. I am so happy to be here. How else would I describe myself? I would say that I love to write, I love to speak, and I recovered from burnout. Burnout is cyclical. I tend to sometimes wander there again and try to catch myself and come back out. But more than anything, I would say, like right now, my identity is that of a fierce physician advocate and a fierce advocate for early career physicians. And every day that goes by, I think that identity becomes more clear to me. Um, and that's really where I would center.
I love that you said that because being a follower of yours on social media, it comes across real strong. And the fierce advocacy is so needed. I know from my personal experience that I floundered a lot. I think the transition from medical school residency to attending physician, it's a huge leap. And who do you go to for support? And I've heard a lot of different people have major variations in the amount of mentorship that they have after they finish residency and during residency. So, but since we're focused on early career physicians, we'll keep it from that sector. And can you share a little bit more about how you became so fierce and why early career physicians?
I want to honor everyone's journey through medicine because whenever I make statements, I don't want to ever feel like anyone is feeling excluded. And that includes our mid and senior career physicians, because we need to recognize that we were all wherever everyone is at this time. I know that sounds so meta when I say it like that, but I don't want to exclude the pre-med, med student, the resident, the fellow, the attending, and then the different stages. For my story, my residency program was supportive. And for a time in my life where I had some health challenges come up and I was expecting my first daughter, and that time could have been very traumatic in my life. But because my program director was so invested in my well being and actually was so caring, I carry no trauma from that time. But I know even as I speak, there are residents out there being bullied and so much is happening. But that was not the case for me. Fast forward, I start as an early career physician. I immediately felt the absence of any support system. I also felt the inner tendencies to appear flawless, that drive to be perfect, that drive to always show up in a way that I know exactly what I'm doing all the time. And so I wasn't asking for help. There was isolation. And then I started as a primary care physician after residency, working full time. I was a mother of a 1-year-old at that time. All of these things were happening. I don't think I need to explain a whole lot why a primary care physician burnt out, because the traditional American United States healthcare system is like built in that way, where a primary care physician in the traditional insurance model can never win. You have to see patients, you have to do all the paperwork, you have to make sure everyone's happy. And when you're trying to make sure everyone's happy and you like things being perfect and you don't want to say no to everyone, you can see how all of that will just create this perfect storm where burnout will happen. And so, as all of this was happening, I also had my second child. And after that, I have been openly sharing more recently. I had postpartum depression again. I had her after the first one as well, but after the second was pretty bad. Fast forward, postpartum depression gets better. I seek help. Just as things were getting better, I had another physical injury. And with the physical injury, also the pandemic started. And with my physical injury, I was sort of bedbound for some time, but I was still providing care virtually to patients, seeing a lot of patients a day. I didn't need to do that. I could have taken FMLA, but again, I wanted to be there, I wanted to perform, and I wanted to show up and not leave my patients to any of my other colleagues because already the pandemic stress was happening. So one thing just kept feeding into the other till, you have that moment. And I had so many moments, but there was just this one day where I was like, okay, this is it. And there were tears involved. Um, what are my options? Am I going to leave medicine completely? Because that's the way I felt. And this entire time period was about 4 years. So I had to do reflection and I realized I actually enjoy taking care of older adults a lot. So my treatment for burnout was to go back to medical training and get my geriatrics fellowship. And after the geriatrics fellowship was done, I recognized I had to recreate myself clinically because even after fellowship, I felt pretty burnt out and either walking away completely or staying involved. And I knew by then I had to help other early career physicians. And it was very apparent to me. And I was already doing it while I was a fellow, I was doing it. Um, I'm not an attorney, but I can look at a contract and tell you what your life's going to look like later on. So those were all the things that were on my mind. And I really, really felt that early career physicians need to advocate for themselves. So fast forward to now, I work clinically part-time and I help take care of older adults in nursing homes and rehab facilities, which fills my clinical cup with joy. I absolutely find it delightful. I can feel the way I did back in medical school. There's awe, there's wonder, and my patients inspire me. And that's exactly how I want to feel as a physician when I'm in my clinical role. And the rest of the time, I spend helping early career physicians by a variety of things. And this entire journey has made it very clear to me that our early career physicians are not supported to the extent that they should. And we're then just, I just love how we talk about, oh, there's a problem, but there are also solutions. And this journey has helped me look at solutions. So to anyone around us who's just like saying that physicians burn out and we should just accept that and we should just move on and we should not complain, I don't think that's going to work that well anymore. So I really think we need to focus on helping set up our early career physicians for success. And I'll add one more thing and then I'll pause there. Um, when we're these amazing bright individuals, they're leaving residencies and fellowships and they're starting and they're so driven and you at that time you were like, okay, I'm finally here. That there was light at the end of the tunnel, except then you realize it might have been a train coming at you. So there you are. And it's not about you if you start with a new system, how to onboard you with EMR training, with what is located. I think that the onboarding process also needs to include some kind of support system that will help that physician thrive. The early career physicians don't need help with clinical medicine. They have the most up-to-date clinical medicine. They need support in all the other things that are happening. And we also need to acknowledge that for most early career physicians, they're also establishing themselves in other domains in life. Are they buying their first home? Are they starting their family? Do they already have a family? And so many multiple things are happening. But when you start as an early career physician, you just are suddenly expected to know everything, be perfect, perform, get handed all the tasks, dare you say no to anything, and just keep going on and on and on.
Yeah, you said so many things in there, and I appreciate you highlighting that burnout is a cyclical type of experience. And also, I get really frustrated if we had a place that you could go if you were struggling, as when I was a resident. And I did go to that place, and that place offered me medication without identifying areas of my own agency that I could modify, and also validating the experience as a very common one for residents. So I thought it was just me. And I think even you saying here, like, this is a very common struggle, this transition, this period of time, and one that comes with a need to unlearn all the beliefs we had. So the themes that I heard you say was this need to look like you know it all, right? And this need to not say no, so we don't have any boundaries. And I'm just thinking of all the times that that was beneficial for us to do, especially when we know there's a scarcity, a true scarcity in residency slots, right? So you have to do everything you can in order to create success for yourself, in order to get this residency slot. So you have practiced very much these skills of being a team player by saying yes to everything, trying to act like you knew, like having confidence in your knowledge so that you were getting the good grades that you needed or whatnot. And that's just not realistic when it comes to first medicine at all. We have these really seasoned later career physicians that are still learning. I'm a full-time researcher. I know that we still are evolving our thoughts on many things that were previously well established. And I'm curious to know for you personally, and then also people that you work with, is how do those themes of the people pleasing and the low boundaries show up? And then what can we do about it?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really great way to summarize it. Um, I think as far as perfectionism goes, I think that starts way earlier. Like high achievers probably start demonstrating that those traits in preschool and kindergarten, just and it just keeps going on and on and on. For people pleasing and boundary setting, um, I think we crave to be part of the pack. We want to be part of the community, and all of us, when we graduate from our training programs, want to practice the best medicine ever. And that drive, like literally, you have the passion and the drive. And yes, residency does, the exhaustion and the work hours do burn you out, but that drive is there. So you don't want to stand out in a bad light. You absolutely, like you said, you want to be the team player. So the only way you know how to do all of this is by saying yes, because that's how you learned exactly in training. Absolutely, you have to say yes, and you just keep saying yes and yes till you snap. And we know that you will snap. And some people are like, well, I am stronger, I guess. I am not. You're like looking at the other person. Like we share our suffering badges, right? Like, oh my, people, boasting about how many hours they can go without sleeping and all those things. But we know studies show that you will snap, and there is a specific amount of rest that you need to recover and keep going, and you don't hit that. So eventually, what's happening is we're shooting ourselves in the foot by trying to please everyone. And so for myself, that's exactly what happened, like, to the point where initially, when burnout started, my first symptom was morning dread and just not wanting to get out of my car. Cars parked in the parking lot. I'm listening to motivational podcasts and books and all the things. And I'm like, I can do this. And not realizing, why am I feeling this way already? Like the energy depletion was not just from the work. I mean, it was just 360 energy depletion, as you know, in a very different shape that it shows up. And then I said, okay, my way to work out from all of this is to have other roles. I need to diversify and add more roles, because then I'm going to improve my chances for leadership. I'm going to be looked at as this new young physician who has come in with all the energy, and now she's also leading these projects. She's working on the projects. Look how helpful she is. I'm not gonna lie, like being a woman did add to that as well, because I didn't want to be perceived as, well, she doesn't smile enough and she's not nice enough and da da da, all the things. So initially, like when I would have some patient interactions and patients would say, some patients would say ageist things like, what do you know? And I give them space too. The other physicians they might have seen were older, and some people were like, "Are you sure? Like you know what you're doing?" And I'm like, I am the person you need because I have the most up-to-date information right now. So I would try to please my patients. I would try to please everyone around me. And by what does that mean? That means saying yes to everything. So if you are then have no in-basket hygiene, I would say, when you're writing love letters to your patients back and forth when they actually need to come in for a visit, there's going to be a problem. So I think the first and foremost thing for me to start recognizing was there is a lot of things that I am doing, and there's not enough hours in the day. When I am be supposed to be done from my work and be home by 5 or 6 p.m. and I'm coming home by 8:30. And then next morning I'm waking up again at 5 and just going in like first thing for me to recognize was something has to give. And so I slowly started trying to reflect on that. And it was so hard, to be honest. Stopping and reflecting is even more exhausting because then you start realizing how awful you feel. And then you start realizing, wow, all of this that I worked for, was it for this? And
Yeah.
so all of the existential dread and the conversation starts. So it's so much easier to just keep staying stuck in that loop.
Mhm.
But what was most helpful was actually I started saying, okay, first thing was I think I took a couple of days off, slept, journaled, and made a list of things that I was doing. I did have help from my coach. I had a counselor, all the things that were just it wasn't me playing it all alone. I then recognized I needed help. Um, and when it was severe postpartum depression, at that time also just realizing I never wanted to start pharmacology. Like the kind of stigma that was attached in my mind to it. I had the medicine was prescribed, it was filled, it was at home. The feelings were like if I gave up a task or took a medicine to help myself mentally, equates to failure and equates to weakness.
Mhm.
So once I started recognizing, well, I have to start somewhere. And so creating space, doing an inventory check of just take a minute and realize all the things that you're doing. And I think that was a great place for me to start.
I resonate so deeply with so many things that you mentioned here. And I think that inventory or the audit of what are you doing and what meaning are you attaching to it? Whereas what like the meaning that you said is if I let a task go or if I take medications, I'm a failure. And
Mhm.
therefore we throw ourselves and can compensate by what you did, adding more roles, right? Because now I'm really going to make sure I'm not a failure or sometimes selfish or self-centered or not a team player, right? It's like, oh my gosh, if I do something to take care of myself, I'm selfish. So I can't do that. I need to show extra hard that I'm a team player by sacrificing even more of myself. And I say that from lived experience. All right. And what you were saying, I resonate deeply with that feeling worse when you're identifying that you reach a point where you've showcased, like, I dedicated my whole life, sacrificed so much to get here. And what is this?
Yes.
And I find that there's this, like, kind of what you said is your see the light at the end of the tunnel, hope it's not a train, and then like what it is a train. And at this conference I went to a few years ago, ACE, they were talking about climbing the mountain, and then all of a sudden the mountain you realize like there's a prison and then you're stuck in it. And or like you climb the ladder and it's on the wrong wall, you know. But when I hit a severe low point, I was inpatient in a treatment center that was like in a different state. It was in Utah, and I was living in North Carolina at the time. And I say that because I know you live in North Carolina. And so I was sitting alone in a hospital reflecting on like all the things I did in my life don't feel to be in alignment with my core values. I was watching my heart rate on it like go real low on a ticker, and I was numb and I was just observing. And I didn't know what to do with that information. I went back to residency because that hospital couldn't keep me because my heart rate was too low. And I was like, I'm laughing about it now because I find it to be interesting, not because it's funny at all,
Yeah.
but it's like I did not feel I could sit with that emptiness.
Hmm.
And my compensation was like, oh, well, the hospital couldn't keep me because I was too sick. So I'm going to go back to residency. I'm not sure I want to be in this residency because I was in surgery at the time. And I was like, the lack of sleep was really getting to me mentally, but no one else was talking about it at the time. So these discussions and just normalizing the experience, I find to be life-saving so that when people hear you, it's like, oh, that's what I'm experiencing right now. I've heard someone else talk about this before. The next steps I heard you say after probably some resistance to it, as you kind of mentioned, I was resistant to taking the meds, was take a step back, take a few days off, try to reground, take the medications as needed just to see, right? Maybe things could be different. Maybe this will actually be helpful, and identify, well, what's coming up when I am resisting or when I'm feeling a certain way. And one of my missions is to help people free themselves from the societal expectations and values that are leading them astray, which aligns quite well with what you're doing. And as you were taking some time off to reset and reground, what was most helpful for you, or what did that look like for you?
The most important recognition was what can I do to sustain myself as a human? And this like recognition where all my life it had been this race to excellence to be this physician, and the rival fallacy was very real, and here I am, and I felt awful. And so at that time I realized that all these other facets of my existence were completely ignored. And what can I do to just acknowledge my own humanity and the fact that I am a physician, but I am so many other roles as well. And we hear people say this, but can you imagine living in a silo to get to a destination and then being so sorely disappointed? And you get to the destination and you practice medicine completely to your ethics and you try to do the best that you can, but it's a moving target and you're never going to succeed. If the definition of success is the one that is being handed to you by the society, by the people around you, it can be incredibly disheartening. So I had to recognize that in my rush to be a physician, I had ignored the other parts of me, um, the part of me that was a mother, the part of me that was so many other, different which ways. So I think it was really powerful to recognize that I'm also a human. Ta-da! And we often gloss over that. And when I recognize that, I realize that I want to honor the part of me that's a physician, and how can I honor that? And I realized that I could not honor that in the traditional way things were set out. And for me, I love taking care of older adults. I love helping their families. And there's something very spiritual about caring for older adults for me. So as physicians, always the solution is to train more. So I did realize that there were obvious there are gaps in training that can only be filled by specific training that you acquire. So for me, that's what fellowship offered, and it for me initially there was like so much healing that was in there in that space. So that transition was so helpful. And when I entered fellowship, I told myself that I'm carrying the entire human, I'm not just going to be Amna, the geriatrics fellow. I'm going to be Amna, the human.
Mhm.
Um, and in medicine, the reason I like to emphasize this is morality is almost tied to being overworking. It's like you're morally better if you're overworking,
Mhm.
undersleeping, and not asking or advocating for your needs, including your need to be financially compensated for time you put in.
Mhm.
It's okay for physicians to do a lot of unpaid work. It is normalized. But I mean, we can give any example of pretty much any other occupation on earth, but you won't walk into a grocery store and buy groceries and just smile at the people and leave. But it's okay if you are a physician. It's okay to do that. And even me saying this, some people will be thinking, well, look at her. She wants to rest and she wants to be compensated for her time and she wants to like advocate for her needs like it's a really bad thing. But I took all of that and I moved forward, and I will continue to advocate for that for all early career physicians and physicians at large.
It's fascinating, and I want to step back to a few things after this comment, but I on Twitter have been more vocal about retweeting every comment about not getting paid in academia, and I still work in academia. I'm like, this is really risky to retweet, but this is a true perception I have that this is hogwash. I went almost half a year without pay between my last job and the current job, but I was working for two institutions for no pay. I was at the lowest point I've ever experienced in my life. And I read through my emails at the time, and they were the most like passively like, please, like, can we consider right during this time, and was transparent about my situation of like, I'm a single female dependent on my income. And even if you're not dependent on it, you deserve to be compensated, not just a little bit, but appropriately. And then if you're not compensated, you are permission to say no and not perseverate about the guilt that that leads to, because it's a boundary setting practice that has been underdeveloped for a really long time. So it will be uncomfortable for many people to set that first boundary and to not ruminate about the guilt that they feel of like, oh, they're not going to think I'm a team player, I'm going to get fired, oh my God, this is going to ruin my career, my life, and I'll spiral down. I've been there, and I realized the detriment. And I recently was put on another grant for no pay, and I asked for some clarification about my duties in that role and
I
that
know.
vision. And the answer I was given was not in my best interest. And I realized at that point, I cannot handle this anymore. I cannot stand quietly for my own self with this anymore. This is not okay. And there was a quote by Danielle Laporte, who's an author from Canada. It says, "The world reflects back at you how much you value yourself."
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Your actions, your advocacy, what you control is what you say yes to, what you say no to, what you tolerate. And what was coming up when you were speaking about the parts of yourself and what you're recognizing, it is an emotional thing, right? It's like grieving the years lost to this chase, right? And also that connection back to self. It's like for the first time, like, oh my gosh, I just realized that I was surrendering my own needs and wants and desires to sacrifice ourselves for the greater good of healthcare,
Yeah.
which wouldn't sacrifice itself back to you, whereas your family would, right? So if you wouldn't mind sharing like what was coming up for you when you were talking about the motherhood and realizing that like I was sacrificing parts of who I am as a whole person.
Let me phrase it this way. When you say what is burnout, I have realized what burnout was for me. And we love to use like, here's a definition and WHO says this and that. For me, it was complete heartbreak. And that's why it's still so difficult sometimes to talk about it. Because imagine you have a dream and you pursue it. And the other problem is I feel that some people have become the cynical individuals, and the ones that are jaded are not asking for help. I was one of them. They're not, their voices sometimes drown these conversations or they tune them out. But this is what it is. If you dreamed a dream and you worked so hard to realize it, I mean, in my heart, I will always be a primary care physician, and you start working, the system is not what it's supposed to be. Expectations, and all you want to do is show up and practice the best medicine that you can practice and have half a decent chance to go back home at a sane hour and be able to enjoy time with your family. And so, for me, for a variety of reasons, like I mentioned, including the perfectionism, everything playing into that, that was not a huge ask. I'm not asking for any, I mean, I should. Why not? But I didn't, right? At that time, that was just like, I just wanted my basic needs met. And so when you realize that the dream that you had was you were so focused on that you completely forgot all other parts of you, and you were so honed in, and you were like, okay, there's a set point that will be the end of training at that time, which was residency, and I will start working. I would have arrived and I would fulfill that dream. And it can be really crushing when you start realizing, wow, and that leads to heartbreak. And that's when you start getting depersonalized. When you start that core value of mattering and belonging, and you might notice this, I put this a lot in my posts as well. I say you matter because when you start feeling that what I say and what I do doesn't matter, and all my life I was chasing this dream, and big surprise, I'm feeling prior authorizations that are getting denied, and my patient clearly needs this medicine. Like the moral injury is very real. And for me, moral injury was mixed in with heartbreak. So all of that I felt was very crushing. But I will say I'm grateful for everything that has happened to me so far. And gratitude is very real because because of all of that, I feel it gave me my voice back. It gave me the desire to write. It gave me the desire to share. And I don't want to leave anybody who's listening to this in a disempowered space because yes, people are talking, people are sharing, so you can realize that if you are feeling this way, it's okay. And you can realize you have choice. Every day that I didn't do anything about how I felt was a choice I made too. Not doing anything is a choice as well. And if you start with anything, you can make things better. You can become empowered. You can set boundaries. I subsequently did apply a lot of boundaries, including those with my patients. If any of my prior patients is listening to this, I love you all, and you know that. But they understood I valued time, and I explained why. And honestly, when I shared with them how much time I was actually given to see them, most of my patients were flabbergasted. So they would, if they were late, a lot of them would just walk to the front desk and they would just lean and look at the front desk staff and go like, we know when's the next available. And so by the time I was moving to for fellowship, I barely had any late patients, and I still had a great relationship with them. They could see the care that I was providing. It When I left, I felt like my patient panel was working really well because I had established those boundaries. I felt very fulfilled in that part. So, yes, this story is there, but there's also so much I learned from that, which I want to share with anyone. So, you don't have to overwork. You don't have to say yes to people. And also, if you are people pleasing and you're saying yes to everything, the people around you don't really know the real you because you're just being fake and you're just showing yourself the way you want them to see you, or you think that they want you to see you. So I was doing that too. So slowly and gradually, as you start taking back control, and when I say boundaries, or Jillian, when you say boundaries, people are like, great, now I'm gonna have to gather some wood, there's a fence, I'm just gonna go manually. No, it starts with you right now. Start right now in your brain. How much space can you create for yourself? And start excluding all these other things and people that are just taking up brain real estate.
Yeah, I say that. I love the taking up real estate in your brain. And also the boundary setting thing. When I was setting boundaries, what I realized is the people who are benefiting from your boundaries will get mad. You got to be okay with that. You're going to do things that people are going to be disappointed. Those people are going to disappoint you as well. And your voice matters. Like you said, I just bought a shirt that says you matter. So I love that message that you just conveyed. And also, like, yes, love this. That picture will make it into this video. And also thinking about the people who responded to my boundary setting, I had people that were super pissed off, but then I had other people who respected me a lot more. And I realized, like, I don't need the other people's respect to validate that this is respecting myself, but it was a nice experience of that people who realize that they need boundaries in their life, they're looking at you and they're learning from you. So if you don't set boundaries, the people, your mentees, if you're working in academia, those residents, you're setting the culture. And we need to know that we have agency. And when you were saying about not setting these people kind of like on a negative type of like, oh, so crushing, right? I'm in medicine, now what? Is that we do have choices, like you said, we have agency, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that agency can look like, especially with your coaching and the things that you help people work through. But just knowing that I in a recent therapy session, my therapist asked me like, do you want to be seen as a people pleaser, or like how do you want to be viewed? And I was like, hell no, do I want to be seen as a people pleaser? Because people have taken so much and they will just take, and I feel like I am not respecting myself, and that goes against the mission that I share. That's like the core to myself. Be true to you, and you just showcase it so well, is when you're people pleasing, not only do other people not know who you are, you lose yourself. Like,
Oh, so
I
well.
right? Like, I don't know what I want or need or how I'm feeling, as I'm just kind of like bouncing all over and being a chameleon, which it's laughable because we both know how it feels and we've been there.
Now we can laugh about it.
Yeah, because humor helps heal the soul and all the pain that comes with that experience. Yeah. So for your coaching and getting feedback agency, so people know I have choices and I can make this life different and more fulfilling than it is currently. Tell us a little bit more about how you work with people.
Yeah. Um, I like to create an experience that's really targeted for my client because everyone is going through a different journey, despite them mostly and largely being early career physicians, but not exclusively, I will say. Uh, the experience that you have accumulated and the concerns that you've accumulated over your career are very different. So I like to do an assessment and meet you where you're at and then hand you things that are doable and easy and tangible and supportive. Not so, when we say coaching, everyone receives it in a very different way. Um, Really, what it is setting clear results that you would like to achieve and working towards those actual results and goals. And what do they look like? I help you go through that entire process step by step, but recognizing, and I'm working one on one primarily, what that is. And things don't have to be this awful, things don't have to be this terrible. It can be so much better. It's almost like I'm so glad that I sought help myself and I have been blown away by the inspiration that I get from my clients actually, you don't have to, when you talk about advocacy and boundaries and people are like, oh, no, 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 I'm going to find all the trouble that I'm going to have to fix now. I don't even want to talk about it. Most of my clients are still in the same jobs, but happy and empowered. So it's not like you're going to have to go and like tear down buildings. And if you want to do that, I'm with you. I'll help you dismantle it because again, it's for you. If you want to change, if you want to pivot, if you want to leverage, do you recognize the potential that you have to offer? Most people don't. Most people don't. Physicians are a hot commodity. You are incredible. You're amazing. Your brain is so beautiful. You are, and not just, again, not just because you're a physician, just because you're a human. But I mean, we can make the business case for it. You are really not recognizing your worth on so many different levels. And I help my clients figure that out. Primarily, the results that we end up achieving will go from any which way, from like confidence, working to manage imposter syndrome. I don't like to call imposter syndrome because we just love to like pathologize everything. But
You have a recent post on it. We'll make sure to share that post. I'll put it.
thank you.
Yeah.
So all of that is really it's about anyone's journey. And when I say this today, there are so many incredible physician coaches at this time. And I look around and it's like rising tides lift all boats. My heart is full when I look around me and there's so many incredible colleagues that are doing physician coaching. Why do I share this? I share this because you can go and find a coach that will work best for your situation. I would love to work with any early career physician, but there are so many amazing people out there, and we are all changing the narrative that is the practice of medicine by empowering physicians. The bottom line is anyone listening to this, please recognize that you matter and please get help. And also, you don't have to be broken and then go and seek help. I mean, you can just be a physician and get a coach and optimize your life. Like, you don't need a reason. So, just go ahead and do that, whatever that next step is, talking to a friend, a peer, a mentor, a coach, whatever that is.
I also think that we don't realize the huge benefit of coaching and therapy and talking to friends is realizing our blind spots, or even like if you're in that kind of mediocre, content, or maybe numb, like I shared with you, I'm like actually pretty numb, which I'm not sure if this is good or bad, or like so bad that I'm just numb. But, what would be helpful is talking it out. And also, the trap that people get in is like, I'm going to leave this institution to go to this institution, or leave this job to go to that job. They bring the same thoughts and behaviors with them. And then
Mhm.
they're like, oh my goodness, why is the same stuff happening? Like, this must be all of academia, or all of medicine, or all of private practice. I'm like, but what's core to, like, what was in your agency to change? And then, with the perspective of putting on like a lens of self-compassion, or if they work with you and they go over their core values and say, well, do these values align with this job, then it can prevent you from making these huge leaps in the wrong direction.
Absolutely.
I'm also a huge advocate of these early career physicians reaching out to you. And if they wanted to do that, how would they do that?
They can find me at earlycareerphysician.com. And my name is on Instagram and LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn handle is dr.amnashabir, and you can just find me as Amna Shabbir on LinkedIn.
Cool. I will also put those links in the descriptions. Are there any last words of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience?
I think all early career physicians should at least have some form of support defined as they start their careers, whether it's a reflection of your career goals, whether it's help that you need in general for home and or work. So just recognizing, do you have a plan? Do you have a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year plan? And sometimes having somebody help you chalk that plan out can be so helpful. Because if you start and you burn out, which will eventually happen to pretty much everyone, this can really sabotage your visions and all the things that you had hoped for. So I would say reach out for help, even if it's with a mentor, a peer. The only thing is be conscious of who you're asking for help. There's a space for everything. If it's a peer, it's great to commiserate and share. If it's a mentor, just know their mentor's information will be guided by their experience. I like I'm not, I mean, maybe I should say it in a biased way or however, but coaching allows you to have that thought process in which what you want or your plan is going to be aligned again, as Jillian mentioned, with your values and with your goals. So it doesn't have to be a really long, drawn out process. Even if you have like a couple of sessions, they can be very revolutionary. So this is more career and personal fulfillment recommendation.
I love that. Yeah. And there's a rule for everybody, right? I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for this lovely discussion.
You are so welcome, and thank you for having me. It was an absolute delight.
Yeah, likewise. And I'll see you around social media, and we'll see everyone hopefully in the comments and also on social media as well. Until next time.